What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? It's your boy Goblin, and today we're coming in with Rehab Part 8. I know I kind of jagged on this one. I said it was going to be out tomorrow, like 3 days in a row, and then that tomorrow never came. But today is the tomorrow. That's kind of a weird statement. Today's the day. Today is the day. Rehab Part 8, ladies and gentlemen. So, hope you guys enjoy. Drop a like if you do. And also, check out my Instagram. I made one in the description below. Follow me on there. Drop a like on my pictures. I don't say like. I say like. 2 C's, motherfucker. So, hope you guys enjoy that. Also, check out my second channel for some more VR content. Seems like you guys have been enjoying that. For those of you who have gone and checked it out, I've gotten some really positive feedback on there. So, I'm going to be doing a lot more VR stuff. I bought some weird-ass game called Klepto, where, like, the whole point of it is it's a VR game where you just go break into houses, but it's terrible. But I played it anyways, so that video should be going up soon. But either way, like I said, hope you guys enjoy this video, and let's dive into it. So, Rehab Part... Oh, wait. I forgot to mention, I'm also live streaming. I'm not live now, but I'm going to be streaming more because that was really fun. So follow my Twitch in the description below. I'll tweet out when I'm live. Hit me up on Twitter as well. But anyways, now let's dive into it. So, Rehab Part 8. Now, where we left off in the last one is we left off right after Kyle snitched for the shampoo thing, and I got called in to the little staff meeting. Now, in this episode, shit really hits the fan. And when I say the fan, I don't mean like a small, bedroom fan, something you could just plug into your wall. I mean like an industrial fan, like some shit in a warehouse type shit, like a fan that the fire department would bring out when there's a large fire and they need a breeze to assist them in putting it out, like this is a big fan, let me tell you, and the shit is even bigger than the fan. The shit went past the fan. It hit the fan, blew through the back of the fan, blew through my fucking cranium, blew my mind, and then murdered everyone. It was a big shit that hit this fan that was also big, but not big enough to contain the shit. So, basically, how we start this off is, I went back to the little lecture after I left the little staff meeting where they asked me about the shampoo incident, and I sat there and I relaxed. And then later that day, after this incident occurred, we were all sitting in our room. It was me, Zach, Sean, and Kyle, and we were all sitting in there, all 4 of us, and there's a counselor at this place named Andrew who happens to be Kyle's counselor, and he comes in the room. He just walks in our room, like, without warning any of us. He walks in, and he asks Kyle what his problem is with me. Like, he's trying to... I love this guy. Andrew's the coolest motherfucker, coolest counselor I've probably ever met. This guy's actually fucking awesome. But anyways, so... he walks in, he asks Kyle what the problem is, and Kyle just spews a bunch of shit. He's like, yeah, well, Nick's just an asshole to me all the time. He's just always trying to be mean to me. Key right here, I would never go out of my way to be mean to him. I mean, anyone in general, but especially him. I don't, at this point, he was literally just trying to come up with things to make me look worse. So, Andrew's a smart motherfucker, and he kind of realizes this because he asks Kyle how. He asks, like, okay, name instances, like, how is he being mean to you? What is he doing? And Kyle just keeps saying, dude, just all the time, he's just always mean to me. So, then Andrew goes over to my little cubicle area, which is right across from Kyle's in the little corridor, and he asks me what's up, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I try, but I can't stand him. Like, I'm going to be honest, I don't fucking like him. He irritates me, but I'm not always mean to him. I try, and in my opinion, it's usually provoked when I'm, mean to him or dick to him or whatever. And we're kind of talking the situation out. And a couple weeks prior, like maybe my first week there, I actually tried to settle the problem with Kyle. I pulled up a chair because we were arguing back and forth and bickering and shit. And I pulled out a chair. He was standing at the door of my cubicle, and I was like, sit down and tell me what the fuck your problem is with me. Because this dude is one of those guys, Kyle, who... likes to have a problem, but then when a clear solution is offered, he avoids it and instead wants to, like, continue the problem. He's one of those motherfuckers, and I understand that sometimes, like, if there's a solution offered, but it's not a good solution, but there was nothing wrong with, what I offered. I literally offered to sit down with him and talk it out. Like, no staff told me to do this. Nobody even knew we had a problem with each other. I just wanted to settle shit so my room wasn't fucking garbage, so I didn't hate being in there with this kid. Of course, he doesn't do it, so I tell Andrew about this. I'm like, yeah, I tried to do this shit. I tried to solve it, and he just fucking left. So then Andrew goes over to Kyle, and Kyle's like, is this true? And Kyle's like, yeah, so Andrew's like, all right, why don't you come and talk to him right now? So he brings Kyle over to my cubicle, and I'm laying in my bed at this point. And Kyle's like standing in my doorway, and Andrew pulls out my chair and is like, why don't you take a seat? And Kyle's like, no, I'm not sitting in his cubicle. I feel really uncomfortable right now. And he just keeps bitching and whining, but like not saying anything to make any progress or resolve anything. He's just bitching. So finally, Andrew's like, all right, well, Kyle, why don't you just come to my office and we'll talk for a little bit. So at this point, Andrew, he knew about the shampoo thing, but he didn't know anything else. So at this point, this is kind of what I assume happened, because this is just what makes the most sense, because I wasn't in the office with him. So Kyle goes to Andrew's office, and coincidentally, after he leaves his office, the whole staff team knows everything. Like the melatonin incident, snorting a fucking pixie stick, whipping each other with towels. We even whipped each other with a belt one time. All the dumb shit we were doing, the staff suddenly knew about. So we drew the conclusion that, it just makes the most sense, that Kyle told Andrew everything, literally everything, but he didn't want to do it in front of us because he didn't want us knowing, because he thought he could like sneak his way around as if we're retarded. We're not that stupid, but he certainly thought we were. So shortly after this meeting with Andrew, maybe a couple hours goes by and everything's chill, no one says anything. And then finally, they call me into a room. They call me back into this little staff meeting, and they're like, all right, so we thought everything was done with, but it's not over. What's going on in your room? Like what's happening? So at this point, I'm sitting here, I'm just like, shit, what did he say now? And I eventually found out what he said, but at this point, I didn't know. So I'm just sitting here like, what the fuck did he say now? Like what shit is hitting this big old fan? So of course, I play stupid again. I'm just like, I don't know. I think we've been a pretty good room. Sometimes we joke and we're a little too loud when we talk, but, I think we're a good room. And there's this counselor named Cindy who's just a fucking asshole. Let me tell you guys, she is an asshole. And she's like, all right, well, I know you're lying. I know there's more information you can give us. And I'm just like, no, I really think the room's been okay. So they just kind of sit there and just look at me with this look of disgust. And I know they know something, but I don't want to say anything because I don't know what they know. I'm trying to play like a game of chess with these motherfuckers right here. So they send me back out of the room, and then Zach gets called in. And they talk to Zach, ask him some questions, ask him the whole shindiggity, the whole thing, whole shindiggity. And I wasn't in there for it, but he kind of filled me in on it. They basically said the same exact thing to him. They were just like, what's going on in our room? And Zach, I don't know what he said. He said nothing, but I don't know what he said, because at some point they got a confession, and it wasn't from me. And he was at this time, this was around when Sean discharged. I don't remember the exact day, but this was right around when Sean left. So I don't even think they asked Sean. In fact, he might have been gone at this point. Now that I think about it, he might have been discharged. Let me think about this. Was he discharged at this point? I think he might have been, because the whole thing where Andrew came in the room with Kyle was like, I remember very shortly after that, Sean discharged, and then this whole like interview thing happened. So I don't think they asked Sean any questions. They didn't say shit to him. They just asked me and Zach some questions, and then they let us both go, and then Kyle goes in, presumably spills all the beans once again. I don't know what they would have called him in again for. I guess he had more beans in his big old fucking bowl of beans that he just had to dump on them. They had a feast in there, dude. They had, like the Bush's beans. He didn't have a can. He had like a truckload of the Bush's beans. He had an airplane load of the Bush's beans, and they were on the landing strip. The whole staff was on the landing strip, showing him how to land. They had the control tower and everything, and he landed with this big batch of Bush's beans and just dumped them on the fucking runway. And they scooped them all up and ran with them. let me fucking tell you. So, he spills all the fucking Bush beans, and then he leaves the room, and the rest of the day shit's relaxed. We kind of know that Kyle's spilling beans, but me and Zach keep to ourselves, because now we know if we say anything to him, he's gonna bitch. He's gonna complain. He's gonna bitch. So then nighttime rolls around. We're all laying there chatting, doing our story time thing. I tell a story, and at this point, I mentioned a couple episodes ago how we tried to like contact that ghost. We are thoroughly convinced that our room is fucking haunted as shit. Like, just scary shit happens. It was probably like placebo effect. Like, since we think it's haunted, we now feel like it's haunted, and we just like tweak out. But either way, that's what it was. So, we're sitting there, and Sean talks about, or not Sean, I think it was, Sean was gone at this point. It was Zach, who mentioned how he had some weird feeling and like he was really spooked out. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm feeling pretty weird. There might be a ghost in here. And we're talking about like a sexy ghost and whether or not like it's a hot chick and maybe we're just tweaking out and it's some like really fine girl who wants to fuck or something. And Kyle's like, I think you guys should redirect this conversation. I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous episode. I might have, because this is at the point in my stay, guys. If the story gets a little unclear, a little mixed up, this is at the point in my stay where I don't really remember what days what or what happened when. I just remember events. Because I was there for 7 weeks, I don't remember everything perfectly. I just remember events, but like I might get the order of them messed up here and there. But I do my best. So anyways, had to clarify that. But we're sitting here talking about the sexy ghost, and Kyle's like, I think we need to redirect this conversation. This is inappropriate. And the facility has all these rules about like, we can't be talking about like girls, or we can't be swearing or anything like that, even in our rooms. And in our room, nobody follows those rules in the rooms. Let me tell you guys, there's not one person in that fucking building who followed the rules in their rooms, except for Kyle. Kyle was the one motherfucker. He had to take it to the extra level because, he basically just fucked us all over and we knew it and we made it very clear that we didn't like him. He now decided to just become an intern, I guess, and just fucking work for this place for no pay. So we're talking about this and Zach's just like, Kyle, shut the fuck up. And Kyle's just bitching and I'm just like, Kyle, I would actually pay 10 grand for a new roommate right now. I would pay every penny I have. And I told him he was like Hitler, and he got very upset at this comment that I told him he was like Hitler. And he leaves the room and presumably goes and tells staff. And he comes back in the room and he lays down, and then the staff member, now that I think about it, I might have mentioned this in a previous video, but whatever. I'm already like the majority of the way through it, so I can't stop now. So then a staff member comes in like 10 minutes later and goes like, guys, you can't be talking right now. It's sleeping time. Spew some dumb bullshit that we don't care about. Checks on Kyle. It's like, Kyle, are you okay? And we hear a little sniffle. We hear some sniffling. So we don't know if he's crying or like what's going on here. We don't know what's up with this guy right now. So he's like, the staff member's like, Kyle, are you okay? And Kyle's like, yeah, I'm good. Says it completely normal. So I don't think he was crying because he, when you're crying, like you got that voice where like, yeah, but like, no, he was just like, yeah, I'm good. So, the staff member leaves the room. They do room checks, like I mentioned a couple times previously, like every 30 minutes during the night. And they leave the room and then we all just knock out. At this point, we're just like, all right, fuck Kyle. We're not talking. Just go to bed. Me and Zach me and Zach saw eye to eye. So we knew we were going to discuss this the next day. So next day rolls around. Let me tell you guys, next day rolls around. And this is when we got confronted. So me and Zach together now get called into this little team meeting, this staff meeting, which had all the counselors and then the head honcho Optimus, right? That's what we call him. His real name is Tim, but Optimus, us. Head honcho, either way. So we get called in there together and the whole team sitting across from us, and me and Zach are just sitting next to each other. And Zach was already in there. He got in there a couple minutes before me, and then they called me in. I said we came in together. I fucked it up. Whatever. I botched it. I fucked it up. Shit. But either way. So Zach's sitting there, and he's just got this look on his face. He's got this look, and I look at him, and I know this guy pretty well, so I can tell when something's up, and I'm just like, oh, they know everything, don't they? Like, they definitely know everything right now. Just by the look on his face, I could tell. So they're talking to me and they're asking me all sorts of shit. They're asking me like, all right, so is there anything you want to fess up to? And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. And the Cindy, I said Cindy, the counselor is what I meant to say. She's like, well, what about the melatonin? And she just drops the bomb. She dropped the biggest bomb, and I'm just like, oh fuck. I'm just like, oh shit, And Zach gives me this look, and Cindy says to me, she's like, because Zach here has already told us a good amount about the melatonin, and I know these motherfuckers play mind games, so I know not to believe shit they say, because they will try to finesse any information out of you, they will lie. So Zach, I look over to Zach and I'm expecting a response. He just doesn't. He sits there completely blank-faced in silence, So I know at this point he folded, and it's not like I'm not mad at him for it. I'm glad he did, because if he didn't, we probably both would have gotten kicked out and we both would have been fucked over. But, at the time I was just like, God damn it. I was just like, fuck. I look over, I just see the look on his face, and he kind of looks back at me, and we make eye contact for that 1 second. When you're real good homies with someone, and you make eye contact, and you just know what they're saying without them saying it? Yeah, it was that kind of situation. So I'm just like, yep, I snorted the melatonin. I said it. I dropped it. I was like, yep, I fucking did it. Because they knew. They knew at this point. If I didn't say it, I would have gotten kicked out. Now both Kyle and Zach had said it. So not only had the kid that I hate said it, which I could have argued, but then the person who the staff very clearly know is my closest homie there also said it. So at that point, they knew what the fuck was up, and they also cut off both of our, because I was getting melatonin at night at this point. After I snorted that first one, I was going and asking for it. I wasn't cheeking it. I was just popping it because it helped me sleep, but they cut off our melatonin. We didn't get any more of that after this night, but finally, they look at me and they just let out this huge sigh, the whole staff team. They're just like, thank you. Finally, you said it. And I'm just sitting there, my heart's racing. I'm just like, fuck. I'm just like, God damn it, dude. This is going to extend my stay so hard. Son of a bitch. Had I not done any of this, I realistically probably would have been out 2 weeks sooner. Maybe even 3 weeks sooner. I probably would have been out at the 28-day point. But because of this event in particular, and me trying to finesse my way through it up until this point, they kept me for longer, because they said to me that I was bullshitting the whole program at this point, which I was fucking bullshitting everything, dude. Oh my God, it was bad. But anyways, so I fess up to it. They're like, all right, thank you. And they're like, is there anything else you want to say? And I'm just like, nope. Zach's like, nope. And they just let us leave. I knew they knew a little more, but they got the main thing that they wanted. So they're happy with that. So they let us go, we leave, and then the next day rolls around. That night is just dead silence. Most uncomfortable shit in the room ever. And at this point, I almost forgot to mention, they moved Kyle down to the MSU, which is the medical unit. And they do that when they're switching someone's room. So they got him out of our room because he said that he wasn't comfortable being in our room. And they put him there. Originally, it was temporarily. They eventually permanently switched his room. But originally, it was just for a night or two while things settled down. Because this whole staff team knew me and Zach were pissed. And had this kid been in a room with us, we probably would have smacked the fuck out of him. But anyways, so we're sitting in the room, and it's just me and Zach chilling in the room. It was nice. We were just relaxing, having a good time, talking. It was chill. It was a good night. So we go to bed. Next day rolls around, and we get called into another meeting. But this time it's in a different room downstairs. It's in Cindy's room, Cindy's little group room. Every counselor there had a group room, and my counselor, me and Zach had the same counselor, was also sitting in there, and Kyle was sitting in there. And Cindy was Kyle's counselor, so that's why she was so affiliated with him and bitching at us about him. So Kyle's sitting in there, and me and Zach walk in, and we're all sitting there, and I'm just completely flabbergasted. I'm like, what the fuck is about to happen? What's happening? So both the counselors ask Kyle to share his view of the situation, and Kyle basically just bitches at me. He doesn't say anything to Zach. He just bitches me out the whole time. He's just like, well, that shampoo thing was very sick. I don't know if it was a joke or not. And then this motherfucker, okay, he tries as hard as he can to make the staff believe that I actually nutted in this man's shampoo. He's like, yeah, well, I don't know if you did it or not, but one day I opened my shampoo and it was kind of watery, and I'm like, boy, I'm sitting here like, what the fuck? First off, if someone nutted in my shampoo at least, I would for sure know. Especially as a man, I know what nut looks and feels like. So, I mean, come on, dude. Really? Really? He's sitting here and he's like, well, my shampoo was kind of watery. Did I nut water? Did I ejaculate Gatorade? What? So the staff isn't buying it at this point, and he's just bitching me out oh, well, I think you did it. That's sick and that's twisted. And they're like, oh, well, we're going to keep you on the MSU for a couple days, Kyle, and we're going to move you back in the room. And he crosses his arms and he goes no. He's like, I'm not comfortable in there. And they're like, the staff is like, well, what do you think would make you comfortable in there? And he's like, nothing. I can't be in there with them. I need to switch rooms right now. So he's just throwing a fucking hissy fit over some dumb shit at this point. And then he bitches us out for everything else. He's like, yeah, and you guys are always whipping towels and being mean and being loud when I'm trying to sleep and do my treatment work. And you're always, you're always snorting melatonin and shit like that. And we're just sitting here, and the counselors are just giving me the fucking stink eye. Me and Zach are just getting the stinkiest eye of all time, the smelliest fucking shit eye we could have possibly gotten. And we're just sitting here like, all right, this is stupid, whatever. Then they asked for my input, so I'm just like, yeah, it was a joke. This whole thing's fucking stupid in my opinion. I didn't really say much else. I was like, yeah, sorry, Kyle. I was really trying to suck up to the counselors. I did not mean any of that apology. Fuck Kyle. I hate that little shit. But anyways, so, I bullshitted the whole thing. I was just like, yeah, sorry, Kyle. I really apologize. I'll do anything to make it up to you. Just dumb shit like that to sound as good as I can. So the counselors get off my ass. And it worked. They were like, after that, I remember my counselor was like, well, it was really mature of you to apologize like that and handle it that way. And I'm just like, yeah, hell yeah, it was, hell yeah. So we get out of that meeting. Kyle's in the MSU. And we ended up getting a new roommate. And he'd been there for way longer than me or Zach. He'd been there for like 70 days at this point. And he got out at the 90-day mark. But I'm going to get into that in the next episode because this one's getting kind of long. So hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like if you did. Don't forget to check out my Instagram and my Twitch and my Twitter in the description below. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.